And we are back, episode 191 of Drew's Sports Crew, here on this Wednesday evening. Myself, Drew Skyberg, here, bringing you the news in the Wisconsin sports world. Look, it's been a wild last couple of weeks in the Wisconsin sports land, and hasn't actually gone our way, right? There's been a lot going on, other than the Brewers, unfortunately, just of course, they do nothing. But we have a Packer season that just unfortunately came to an end way too soon. We'll break down that. We'll talk about free agents here and talk about how the team's going to be moving forward. Otherwise, we have the Bucks came off a win last night, back to back tonight. They play Friday as well, 3 games this week. We'll talk about how the Bucks have been doing, and the story's been not being able to play well against the great teams. So I'll get into that. Talk about kind of what the plan is moving forward for this Bucks squad, and yeah, we're gonna go through that. And I'm trying something new. So announcement 1 here is 6 p.m. So in 30 minutes, Journey Million will be live. So right before Journey Million or right after, thinking we're gonna piggyback these shows, if you will. So you'll hear them both back to back, but you'll also at the same time hear them on Spotify whenever you'd like. That does not interfere with the post schedule, meaning you will still get your power rankings. Obviously, the NFL one's the last week of those because I'm not going to power rank 4 teams. However, I feel there's still some value ranking the top 8 teams left, who I think has the best shot to win the Super Bowl. So, with that, that's the production announcement. Otherwise, yeah, expect Wednesdays are going to be a great day for recording, great day to hear some episodes, and a great day to talk Wisconsin sports. And that's what we're all about here. Had some stressful games last night. I had the Marquette game I was watching. They go into overtime against DePaul. They were 13-point favorites in DePaul, so in Chicago. And look, it was a wild game. They almost got upset in a game where we haven't seen DePaul win in 2 years, a conference game. So that was very, very scary. The Bucks hung on last night. I mean, it ended up looking convincingly, right? That was the biggest scoring output of the year, but easily could have been not that. So, yeah, that was the sports last night, and we saw that. Now, of course, the Badgers get the win too. So let's get into the show here, though. Enough said there. We'll go over to the realm of the Packers, right? Talk about the game. And look, that was a frustrating game, to say the least, in terms of just how it turned out. The Packers really gave them a fight. I think, I'll say it. I think the Packers played better than what the score indicated. I think, okay, they lose 22-10. Obviously, we know what the Eagles defense brings. We saw it right at the start of the game. Look, I think the Keshawn Nixon play there. Obviously, he can't fumble the ball there. Everybody knows that. But the interesting thing is, was it? It looked like an illegal head-on hit, right? It also looked like the Packers had a clear recovery in replay. Obviously, it wasn't overwhelmingly convincing, or how they say it. So that was frustrating, but you lose the ball right away in the start. They get a touchdown out of it, so you take that. But I look at this game not from what play we could have changed or this and that, but just overall how the Packers defense played. They played well enough for the Packers to win this game. They really did. Saquon, this might sound crazy of me saying this. He was held to 4.8 yards a carry. You can say that long run to end the game, the 17-yarder that he could took the house, he slid. But still, I mean, obviously he had his way. But they held this passing game in check. I mean, Jalen Hurts. All I'm saying is if Washington could stop the run better than Green Bay did, I think they can win the game. I think they can win the football game. And I just said that wrong because Washington's playing Philly because the Rams are going to be playing the Eagles. But still, my point is who can, if they can stop the Rams or whoever, right? The Rams in this case, could stop the run on with Saquon. I think this passing offense from Philly is just as concerning as I thought in the regular season. Hurts 13-21. It's like, okay, well, did he really need to throw the ball? Right, he didn't really need to in this one, but still, I think this offense was they stall at times. AJ Brown's playing hurt. Uh, Goddard had some nice plays, but you know, Goddard for the game that people make it sound he was 4 for 47. He had that 124-yard touchdown, off 6 targets. So it's not like they played overly impressive either. I mean, it's gonna be tough though. Wishing Nakobe Dean the best. That's a huge loss for them now out the rest of this postseason and possibly some next year. As right for Green Bay, right? I'm talking about the opponent, but my point is, I think this Packers defense played well for the circumstance that was given and for how they had to play. So he'll take that. But the offense, look, the depth. You saw Elton Jenkins go down, put 2 left guards in who little to no experience, and it shows. The holding penalties, the missed assignments, the legal man downfield. I mean, it was almost as if the refs were just watching, knowing, right, the officials knowing that there's going to be a penalty on the left side of the offensive line, and it was almost as if, and they were all penalties. It's not that I'm saying, but it was almost obvious, right? You just look at that position, just get fixated at that one spot and see, hey, that's where the penalty is going to happen. But besides, I think the depth, right? A receiver, you saw some guys who we see in preseason games get postseason snaps in a do or die drive, if you will. We saw Jayden Reed go 4 for 46. He had a nice game. He really did. He's all the hate he got throughout the year, the inconsistencies, which were there, but he had a nice game. You really thought Dontavian Wicks would have had some of that breakout there, but 2 for 39 with all the guys out. Reed sounds like shoulder injury, should be fine, will not need surgery. Let me just add to that point here quick. And then for the other receivers, Dobbs in concussion protocol is what I've last heard. And then obviously Watson, we know, is going to miss a good chunk of time next year. So, I mean, this kind of is a perfect segue to the offseason preview of the squad. Just brief here, right, as we're going live at 6. So I think the big story is, do they bring in a veteran guy? Obviously, Devontae Adams is just screaming, right? Green and gold. But I think another good question is, right, the Packers have the least amount of cap space, or the most cap space available in terms of how it's going to shake out. Let me say that better. The Packers are, in terms of percentage of players who are not going to be restricted free agents, not tying this to cap because the whole love deal. In terms of the percentage of restricted free agents, they have the lowest, meaning they have the most guys under contract, unrestricted free agents, I mean. But point is, the Packers are retaining a lot of their players, the most players out of any team, barring cuts and whatnot, year over year. New league year over new league year. It's odd to say, but it's a fun stat to note because the importance of that is the Packers. This roster is going to be a lot more continuity than you'd see year over year, like the Vikings, who have the most players who are free agent eligible, which, of course, with the quarterback starts with, are they going to bring the running back? I mean, the list goes on with that squad. But I think the big thing with our team, right, Green Bay, is, there's a couple spots. You go kicking, your punter and your kicker are free agents. Your Emmanuel Wilson, a guy who I personally love. I think he's a great compliment to what Josh Jacobs does. Obviously, might want a better receiving back, but I think those guys have potential to stay with the squad. I think right away that was a guy I felt. Obviously, TJ Slayton, who had, really stupid penalty in that game. But you like what he brings to this team. You really do. He's probably a guy you bring back. A lot of those receivers are going to be extension eligible, right? I mean, I talk about guys like Jayden Reed, Christian Watson. Obviously, his situation gets a little muddy here, but those are going to be guys to watch. Corey Ballantyne, Zane Anderson. I think a couple of these guys you'll see in the secondary maybe go, but, I think the main story, right, is going to be, Josh Myers is one who you could see him walk, I think. I think center is going to be a spot you have to look at. I think hopefully Morgan's going to be ready in this upcoming year, but just looking at how the team's going to shake out, There's going to be some changes on the offensive line. They have to at least draft a receiver. I say at least, meaning the minimum, because you think they're going to sign a veteran. It would be so refreshing to see this squad sign a veteran receiver. Um, so I think that's at least my hope. But we gotta wait and see kind of how the rest of the year shakes out. I think the staff, Matt LaFleur's staff, is going to stay relatively put. Tom Clen's, the longtime QB coach, did announce his retirement, so there's one move there. Otherwise, the staff is going to be, you'd think, the same as 24. I don't know. We'll see kind of how that shakes out as the season again wraps up, but. With being a first round exit, right? There's this time waiting. Packers, I believe, are selecting 23rd, just with being the 7th seed and kind of how the year rounded out. So, not the worst. You think about how the team performed and right going with the records and so on. So, yeah, I like to see that, and obviously love throwing those 3 picks. Second last point I'll make. I think it'll be my last point. It's just I don't know how much you put that on him. Obviously, there's some desperation there. He didn't look healthy the whole time, and definitely could see probably was playing through something. But it's just a tough game, and I can't. There's no way as a Packer fan I can say he was hurt. That's why he didn't play well. Jordan Love did not have a great game. Jordan Love did not play well for this team to win. There's no denying that, and I think it starts with him. But again, not to pick play by player by player. I think he would tell you, he played like he did in Dallas last year. Different story. Obviously, that defense too create some points, but you get the point. So let's go over the Bucks here before we wrap up. And look, Milwaukee. Now go pivot to the NBA. Let's just talk where they are right now before tonight's game. They're 21-17. They're the 5 seed in the East. They play Orlando tonight. The season ended today. They play Orlando with Orlando having home court advantage. However, Bucks are half game back. If they win tonight, you just see those flip flop. But based on how the standings shake out, I mean, the Bucks again are, I believe, 0-8. I believe is the stat against the top 3 teams in the East. Which, right, think about it. They've lost to the Cavs, they've lost to the Celtics, they've lost to the Knicks. They haven't beat them. We saw Sunday they got blown out by the Knicks. I think with this squad, the East is extremely weak this year. I mean, you take Boston and Cleveland. I mean, New York at 26-15 is a 3 seed. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of how it is in the West too. But the West definitely has like you'd say Memphis is better than, or Orlando being the 4 is kind of what drives me like crazy in terms of how it shakes out. I mean, the top 6 in the West right now: Oklahoma City, Houston, Memphis, Denver, Clippers, Mavericks. I mean, you take all 6 of those teams over. Obviously, you take all 6 over Orlando, but I mean, right now you're probably taking 4 of those teams over Milwaukee. I mean, you're probably taking Denver, Memphis, Houston, and OKC over Milwaukee, just with the nature of how Milwaukee's played now 38 games in, 21-17. You probably are. And understandable. But, I mean, they have time to turn it around. And they have made that turnaround this last month and a half, if you will. Obviously, there's been still some rough patches in that month and a half, but there's been a lot more consistent basketball, especially at home. I think it's the big story. This team is 13-7 at home, which usually we would see a lot better. But this team on the road, 8-10. Again, their losses are coming to the top teams. Half their losses are from top three teams in the East. You can't beat good teams, and might sound familiar, right? I mean, we saw this problem with Green Bay. They didn't beat the top 3 seeds in the, I guess really the top 2 if you look at it, and then the Vikings, top 3 record-wise teams in the NFC, they didn't beat. 0-5. What did you see here for the Bucks? 0-8. Just can't beat the good teams right now, and it's pretty frustrating. Of course, they have the win against OKC that doesn't count towards regular season. They have a win against Houston. So it's not like they haven't beaten any good teams, right? I mean, that's not the problem. But you definitely want to see this team turn around, and we have. And I talk about the schedule being pretty favorable. You have the Raptors at home on Friday. Should be a blowout. Again, Toronto's 9-31. You have tonight again, Orlando, who they haven't lost yet this year. You'd think that'd be a win, but again, Paulo Banchero's been back um, and has played a lot better. Well, he was playing phenomenal. It's just he's been back, I guess, is how I should say that. So you see that change there. But again, you just like how the schedule again for Milwaukee, how it's going to shake out these next few games. I pointed to Portland and stuff; those games they lost, but um, obviously, there's some fluky games in there too. But Orlando, Toronto, you play at New Orleans. I mean, you're playing some of the worst teams. The Heat without Jimmy Butler. I just think you go to Utah, you go to Portland. Obviously, a tough road. Like there's some tough road trip games in here, but besides. Yeah, I'd say their next 10 games. I mean, they should be favored in a lot of them. I mean, I would say 8 or 9 of them, but um, it just depends on how the injury reports. Depends on if Giannis is playing back to backs, Dame's playing back to backs. So depends from there. But look, I think we're gonna keep seeing the wins. They're 4 of their last 5, right? That one loss being in New York, absolute blowout in New York, but. Tonight they keep it going. Again, I'm talking about like statistics, like who's standing out right now in the squad. Obviously, it starts with Giannis, another triple double last night. This is his highest score, or this would be the first year he'd lead scoring in his career. Again, he's at 31.5. I believe he's leading right now by 0.1 points, but again, averaging 31.5 a game. Could win the MVP. You definitely have to consider him. He's 31.5, 12 boards, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, or 1.5 blocks, 0.8 steals. You have to consider him. And then Dame is on a track to be an all-star again. 25, 4 and 4, or 4 and 7, my bad. 4 boards, 7 assists, and a steal. I feel like Dame, so obviously we know he's been phenomenal this year, but like I feel like almost Dame's having a quiet 25 points a game. He hasn't had the big it's Dame time moment this year, as right we saw a couple times last year, but 25 a game for him. I just want to talk about those guys. Obviously, we know what AJ Green brings, but the new guy who we've really seen, take initiative and take lead of even the bench unit, Ryan Rollins, right? I mean, he started 4 games so far. He's played 22 of them. I think for him, the big thing is, he's not afraid to take those shots. And I think sometimes we see that with Andre Jackson, Ajax. We see some hesitancy to take the shot and almost, hot potato. But we've really seen with Rollins the confidence, but also just the willingness to just make the right basketball play. And I think that's just a testament to how he's really taken on the role. And I think there's going to be a decision with his contract too coming up with being a 2-way guarantee. I think he's deserved it, and I think he's really played a nice job on this team. I think obviously Trent and Rollins have made the impact we've. I'd say they've met expectations a little. Obviously, you thought Trent might make more of an impact. He's averaging 10 a game right now. He'd prefer more, but I feel like DeLon Wright was a guy who I was like, oh, it's a sneaky move. He's averaging 2.7 a game. He's barely getting minutes, and when he's out there, it feels unproductive. So I think that's my frustrations mainly with Wright, but I understand still the need for his veteran presence on this team, and I think moving forward, just how the minutes have balanced out. Obviously, Pat's been the guy who's really suffered from the minutes situation, but the impact Rollins has made, and obviously Milton not being 100% still, it seems, and just getting back into playing basketball again, organized basketball. I think that's been a big switch around. And yeah, I think statistically, you look at this team, right? You see the 2 stars, and I think when you see him even in the game, right? There's the guys who don't make the big box score impact. Andre Jackson, first and foremost, comes to mind, but we've really seen Taurean Prince as well with Brook, of course, too. Scoring's obviously out there. He's averaging 12 a game, but still defensively, he's lost a step or two. Won't deny that, but the impact having a guy like Brook Lopez on your team still is valuable. So. Yeah, in summary for the Bucks, right, schedule favorability has continued. They're 4-1 in their last 5. It looks like they can win 7 of their next 10 games for sure. which would again put them in a pretty good spot to be the 4 seed, potentially the 3 seed. I think if you look at how this year started, you'd even take the 4 seed, but really a 3 seed is kind of where I look at like, hey, the East is struggling as a whole right now. Besides those top 2 teams, a 3 seed's in the realm of possibilities. Right, the Knicks haven't, I would say, I'd say they've a little slightly underperformed, even having those 15 losses already. 38 games of the year. So that's where I put them. And yeah, that's gonna wrap it up here. Again, we got Journey to Million here coming in shortly, starting in a few minutes. So hope you can join us there. And that'll wrap it at Drew Sports Crew on all social media platforms. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Drew Sports Crew, the perfect podcast for you.